In this tutorial, I will show how to simplify radical expressions using the product rule. This requires a good understanding of perfect squares. Perfect square numbers, while there is an infinite amount of them, typically you only use those below 100. And so, how do I use these perfect square numbers with simplifying radical expressions? Let's say we are trying to simplify the square root of 28. The product rule allows me to split 28 into a square root times a square root. Thus, square root of 28 could be written as square root of 1 times 28, or 2 times 14. However, because we're trying to simplify this radical expression, we know only perfect square numbers are the ones that we'll be able to take the square root of. So, because 28 is only just above 25, we know we only have to look at these first 5 numbers to determine, does one of these values, these perfect square values, divide into 28? And while 1 will always divide into any number, the square root of 1 will always be 1 and will never change this value. It would still be 1 times 28. 4, however, will help me change the square root of 28 into a simplified radical form, because 4 times 7 is 28. And this means that now I can take the square root of 4, because that will be 2. So now I would have 2 times the square root of 7, or 2 root 7. Now let's try the square root of 45. We want to look for a number that's lower than 45. It's a perfect square that will divide in evenly. So we would only look at 36, 25, 16, 9, 4, and 1. 1 won't change it into a different number, so that would stay at square root of 45. If 1 is the only one that will go into it, then we already have the number in simplified radical form. However, 9 will multiply into 45, but how many times? 9 times 5. Notice how I'm writing the perfect square number first. That's because the square of 9 is the whole number 3. So I could rewrite this as 3 times the square root of 5, or 3 root 5. Now let's try the square root of 80. The square root of 80 is an irrational number. It would equal a decimal if you type it in your calculator. So, we must look for a perfect square number that will divide into 80. As you go down your list, we know that 1 will not change it, but 4 will go into 80. So, before you use your product rule, if you want to try 4, it would be 4 times 20. However, 4 will also go into 20. This means that I have not picked the biggest perfect square possible that will go into 80. Thus, it's going to leave me with more work to do. So, instead of using 4 times 20, I'm going to look for a bigger perfect square. And you will notice that 16 will go into 80 also. So, the best way to do this problem is to start with 16. 16 times 5. Because now, the square root of 16 is 4, and I'm left with a square root of 5, which is irrational. Thus I have 4 root 5 as my answer. Using 4 will still work, however, it just requires more steps. So, you can see the square root of 4 here would be 2, and that would leave me with 2 root 20, which is not in simplified radical form because root 20 can be rewritten as square root of 4 times square root of 5. So, I would bring this 2 down, and I would have 2 times square root of 4 times square root of 5. The square root of 4 becomes 2. And now I already have a 2, so it's 2 times 2 times the square root of 5, and 2 times 2 is going to make 4 here together, and I still have root 5 left over. So I will arrive at the same answer, just with fewer steps if you pick the biggest perfect square. Now you try A and B here with root 125 and root 75 and see if you can get the simplified radical form. Pause the video now to work them out on your own and then resume when you're ready to check your answer. Root 125 can be rewritten as square root of 25 times 5, thus 5 root 5. Square root of 75 can be written as square root of 25 times 3, thus 5 square root of 3. Check out my next video on simplifying radicals if you're ready for the next level.